Welcome, Darcy. Hello. How are you? Welcome, Bert. Welcome, Darcy. Hello. How are we?
Hello, I am fine. I have to put my earphones on because I'm not at my house right now. So
I won't ask you too many personal questions then.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. You can. It's just me and my daughter.
Oh,
So
that's
right.
beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
well, we've got a new moon in Leo coming on the weekend. So new moon, you know how you and I are really aligned to the moons. And so
Mhm.
like we're hitting Leo season, which is exciting. So new moon, you and I, let's do this. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to delve into the profound connection between love, intimacy, and fertility, and how nurturing a loving relationship can enhance your chances of conception. I mean, let's face it, time sex is annoying and often anything but sexy. And it can also quickly turn depressing when then you're in the 2-week wait and then you get this negative pregnancy test. And then if we rinse, wash, repeat that month after month, and sometimes it's year after year with some of, the patients that come to see me, they may have been trying, one patient has been doing 58 cycles of tracking. All right. And so it can get to a point of hopelessness and sometimes a point of anger and frustration between you and the person that you love. So, as cliche as it sounds, your physical body and your emotional well-being have a huge impact on your health and your fertility and your overall quality of life. And I often hear that months and years of trying to conceive are the toughest times in a marriage or partnership. They can often be emotional and lonely and sadly filled with unnecessary self-shaming. So, for example, if we look at a study, this is in the Reproductive Biomedicine in April 2022, and researchers found that among individuals who have been diagnosed and treated for infertility, that approximately 60% believe that infertility has impacted their mental health. And among these individuals, 1 in 3 also indicated that this caused strain on their relationship. I've got another study. It's a Danish study, and this is 47,500 Danish women in the Obstetrics and Gynecology Journal. Researchers found that individuals who do not end up having a child after treatment are 3 times more likely to divorce their partner compared to those who do have a child. So although the stats can be really intimidating, it's important to stay positive and this is where I want you to know that you can survive and you can thrive throughout this fertility journey. So for those that you might be struggling, and sometimes we don't even want to admit that. And so, I want you to know that I've got some great ideas and some hot tips for us today. So I'm going to look at the 3 T's, all right? The 3 T's: teach, touch, and talk. These are my big 3s, all right? My big 3 things when I'm working with patients that are having issues. And, really, if we look at teaching your partner or your husband about your body and the conception process, because how much does your partner really know? A lot of the time I'm working with women and their partner's kind of in the sideline, but, really, do they know about how, even with their overall health and how that can affect their sperm? And in our society, most men presume that if there's a problem with conception, it's not theirs, right? I mean, let's be honest, most men pretty much think that their sperm is amazing and that they can get women pregnant instantaneously. That's hands down how most men that come to see me with their partners think. Yeah, it's true. And you might be surprised at how little your partner actually knows. So does he know about cervical mucus? Does he know about the cervical height and about your cervix? Does he even know what a cervix is? Or how the egg is released from your ovaries only during ovulation? The more he knows, all right, and the better prepared he's going to be as a dad to talk to your kids about the topic when the time comes. So teaching is important, learning, all right? Touch. So now this may sound weird. It may sound weird, but when things get pressurized and stressful on the journey to conceive, I find couples just stop touching each other. And this is not just in a sexual way, but in a normal way. And what I mean by that is even just like cuddling on the couch, or, you know, holding hands, or just a hand on your partner's leg, you know. Like, I love cuddling, I love snuggling, I love holding my husband's hands. But for whatever reason, this process can make couples distant. It does. And I've had partners say to me, is she only initiating sex because she's ovulating? You know, and then if the guy's not snuggling the woman, you know, the women can get in their heads about it. Was it because he's depressed, and, you know, that we've just kept having these endless big fat negatives? You know, we all get in our heads about things, all right? And so talking about ovulation and BBT, it might, and even cervical mucus, it might not get you going. It's not really a turn on, but in this messy process of trying to conceive, it's important to learn about your body and how it affects your desire, which might just help you dial up a notch. So for some women, this might be the first time you're really touching yourself, like regularly, you know, and observing your body. And this is interesting. You know, I want you to pay attention to what ovulation does to sex and your desire, you know, how it affects your sex drive. It's about paying attention to the peaks and the rhythms throughout the month. Now, talk. I know it's always easy to suggest this, but we all know it can become really difficult when things aren't working. This is the most important. This is the most important. It's so important. This is important to remind each other that you're on the same team. We're in this together. We're on the same team. Sharing the pressure and the anxiety of what you're feeling when you're trying to conceive, it can really bring up raw emotions, all right? And not sharing this experience will have its own consequences, and it just bubbles up all this resentment and blame, all right? So our ability to get pregnant as women and our ability to, as men, to get women pregnant are so woven into the identity of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman, that we often feel like we're failures when it doesn't happen. So I want you to give yourself a moment to catch your breath after that negative test. I always say, let's sit in that, sit in the sadness, sit in that, try not to run away from it. Give yourself a moment, some breathing space. It could be just one breath at a time, one moment at a time, yeah? And then try to find a moment to talk to each other, talk to your partner. And if talking seems too hard, writing it down. All right. I recommend paper over text or email, because that way you've got greater control over what you say and how you say it. Now, it's really important. This is about being mindful about when they receive it. All right. Because sometimes if you send your message during the workday and they catch it during a really high stress, busy meeting, you know, your message might not be received in the thoughtful, considerate kind of, you know, way you'd hoped for. So we're trying to just find the right moment for you and for them. And you're probably, your partner's probably feeling a lot of similar emotions too, that they might be holding in for their own reasons. And often because they're feeling shame or guilt and that they've let you down, right? And they probably don't have a lot of people to talk to about it. In fact, I find the guys internalize most of this. They don't talk, they don't have people to talk. Women tend to talk a lot more than the guys. So open dialogue. We need to have, it's essential, right? It's to communicate openly with your partner about your feelings, about your desires and any concerns regarding your relationship. And those honest conversations, they really do help you understand each other better. So looking at emotional connection, this is emotional intimacy. So spending quality time together. Now, this can be just doing things that you both love, going to the markets, and just, regularly expressing appreciation. I appreciate this about you. Like, how often do we sit in appreciation and affection of one another? We're often in, constructive criticism, but it usually comes across most of the time as, you're not doing this, or have you done that? can we step into more appreciation and affection of one another? Because let's face it, building a strong emotional connection is crucial when we're in this process. And if we look at emotional connection, it's the bond that forms when two people feel understood, when they feel appreciated and cared for. It's about being present and engaged. And it's about you really just, feeling each other's feelings and experiences and what they might be going through. Now, this could be, having quality time together. Now, this is uninterrupted conversations. I find, we tend to have interrupted conversations. So this is where I'm saying uninterrupted conversations, where you're actually spending time talking to each other without distractions. Now, this could be during a meal. I find walking is a good time to have these deeper conversations, because sometimes you're looking out at nature and you're not taking it personally, as opposed to just before getting into bed, because sometimes you can get triggered, but on a walk, you can walk it out, if you know what I'm saying. Expressing appreciation and affection. So verbal affirmations, it could be, simple affirmations like, I just so appreciate you. I really appreciate the flowers you brought home. Or I just, little love notes. How can you say thank you or I love you to strengthen the bond with each other? And then it can be just even non-verbal cues, just little smiles, little looking at your partner across the room. You could be, at a function and you just lock eyes with your partner for a moment in time. It's just giving them that validation, so a look of affection can communicate so much love. Or even walking past your partner in the kitchen, lightly touching each other's thighs, or, a little pinch on the bottom. It's just a little gentle, sexy appreciation of love, isn't it? It doesn't have to be verbal. And then, as I've said about active listening. So when you're really active listening, and I can be guilty of this, all right, myself, you want to really focus on what your partner is saying. So this means putting away this. This is the biggest obstacle in relationships, is the mobile phone. So can we put the phones face down if you're out for dinner? Or, just put them in your bag and out of sight. So you're not distracted by the ding, 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 or the light flashing if your phone's on silent, but just maintain the eye contact. Eye contact is really important. It shows that you are active listening. And then it can be, reframing back what your partner said to you. If they paraphrase what they've said, or ask clarifying questions about what they've been saying. If we look at emotional support, it's about, trying to have a little bit more empathy. Can you actually put yourself in your partner's shoes? Can you think about their perspective? Sometimes we take everything so personally, like we're super triggered in this process. We're almost like children. We only see things from our own perspective. Can we actually have more empathy and step outside of ourselves and put yourself in your partner's shoes? And, it shows more care and concern, but validating your partner's emotions. Let them know that their feelings are valid, even if you don't agree with them. Validate their feelings. All right, shared vulnerability. So this is about open communication, being honest, being open about not just your wins, but your fears, your insecurities, because often, our bodies will change through this process. We're feeling insecure. If you're doing an IVF cycle, there can be bloating from the trigger shots, and, women are not feeling good in their bodies, and they need to communicate this openly. All right. And this builds trust. So this is trust building. All right. It's about creating this safe space where you can both feel comfortable about sharing your real self, your vulnerable self, without fear or judgment. And then it's rituals and traditions. Let's look at some of those things. It could be, a nice little check-in with each other. How was your day? Where is the little check-in? Just checking in on you. My husband does little check-in. Where are you? He does little check-ins if I'm away from him. And I love that. I feel very special. It could be weekly date nights, annual trips, or just even holiday traditions. Maintain some rituals and traditions that are meaningful to you both. And then emotional intimacy. So this could be Can we explore like a couples workshop together? You know, participate in couples therapy or workshops that focus on building emotional intimacy and connection. It could even be a mindfulness practice. So, you know, doing a meditation practice together, or, you know, just whatever it is, if it's prayer, going to the synagogue, you know, whatever it is, the church, wherever your shrine or your place of worship is, can you go together? But let's look at conflict resolution. This is a big one. I think we need to look at conflicts and approach conflicts with a mindset of understanding. And I call this conscious compromise. You know, I don't believe in sacrifice. I look at reframe it as conscious compromise rather than winning and losing, right? Remember, we're on the same team. You're not meant to be winning the fights and losing the fights. It shouldn't be about that. Who can be the biggest person, right? Next time you're having an argument, who can be the bigger person, and go in for the conscious compromise and disarm the argument? Like, give it a go. I find it works every time. The moment you can be vulnerable and go, actually, I really do see it from your perspective, or I think you wish we'll give it let's try it your way. After you, you know, politeness is amazing. But it's about managing the stress that may impact the emotional connection. So can you do some yoga together or some weight training? Like my husband and I, he got me into weight training. I'm a yogi, but I'm now into weight training and I love it. We go to the gym together. It's, you know, couples that train together, stay together. You've heard the paraphrases. It could be walking together. It's just anything that's going to help manage your stress. And I find movement is really good for emotional connection. Healthy conversation. Try and avoid things like I think and you, because we're going back into blaming, aren't we? We want to be more listening, you know. This makes me feel. This is how this makes me feel, rather than it's a projection onto your partner. So let's look at conflicts as opportunities for growth rather than something negative. All right, let's look at some practical exercises. So this could be some love map exercises, some sharing, you know, spending time asking each other personal things like, you know, your dislikes. What are your dislikes? What are your dreams? The bigger questions, you know, can we even step into gratitude journals? I find when you're in a state of gratitude, you're in a state of receivership. And it can be just, you know, if your partner's never done that, just get them to write down or even think about what are 3 things you're grateful for before you go to sleep at night. It's really nice to step into a gratitude practice or wake up with a gratitude practice. But yeah, look at your life goals, engage in the deeper conversations, because that gives personal value and that gives you shared dreams and fosters a deeper emotional connection. But let's look at some of the, you know, more physical connection, like giving each other massages. I love massage, the power of touch. So, you know, it helps you both to connect and relax. You know, it could be, all right, I'm going to give my wife the beautiful foot massage, or, you know, let's have a foot soak and massage from the ankles to the knees, work the way up to the heart. You know, use your love potions, your essential oils with ylang ylang and rose and those sexy patchouli and sandalwood, and, you know, make it sensual. Share a bath together. You know, just shake it up. You know, it changed the environment, change the atmosphere. Can you make it romantic? And when I say romantic, dim the lights. Can you add in some beautiful soy candles or some soft music? Records that you may have just like, oh my God, records. Does anyone still play records? I love records, pulling out the old vinyl. You know, what is the songs that you used to play when you first met each other? Pull that out. Can we make the meal times, sexy times, romantic? So we're playing our romantic music. It gets us in the mood. Can we plan even like regular date nights to rekindle the romance and focus on each other without distractions? But if we look at some of the essential activities, so let's look at non-sexual touch, because I think everyone's thinking, when are we talking about the sex, Fiona? Well, I'm getting there, right? I'm coming around it. You can see that there's so much to love and intimacy. It's not just about the sex. So this is about non-sexual touch. So let's increase non-sexual touch, because we want to build arousal. And I think we've forgotten this in the process of, you know, baby making sex. So can we do the holding hands? Can we do the melting hugs? And I mean, when I say melt, more than 20 seconds. Let's hold the hug, like melt into each other. Feel the heartbeat of your partner, heart to heart, right? That's the real hugs. And we want about 8 a day, 8 hugs a day. All right. And soul gazing, just really just can you look into each other's eyes? And it's not a stare out. It's about seeing the person, seeing them beyond what you see just by looking casually. Like, I want you to go soul deep. So soul gazing is so powerful. It's an exercise that gets you really intimate, close. And it builds that intimacy without the pressure of sex. So I think there's just the pressure of the sex in this fertility process. So can we involve, you know, even touching each other without the goal of intercourse, right? This could be an exercise where, you know, you could touch your partner and say, I'm just going to touch you for the pure sensation of pleasure, to give you pleasure. All right, without an end goal. It's not about it being in the ovulation window. It's just about for intimacy and arousal. Can you do that? And then let's explore erotic literature, films. All right, there's so much out there, and everyone has different tastes. So these things, they spark conversations and sexual fantasies. And it could even be, let's look into the world of Tantra. Tantra, just so you know, is not solely about sex. I think when people hear the word Tantra, they think sex, but Tantra is all about love and intimacy. It's actually about a deeper conversation and a connection with yourself, right? And your partner. So if we look at Tantra, it's derived by, you know, 2 Sanskrit words, Tanoti, which means to expand, and Triati, which means to liberate. So Tantra, we could step into the world of Tantra. All right, but exploration and playfulness. We could look at sex toys, introducing toys or other aids that can help you explore new sensations and add excitement to your experiences. You know, like it could be, let's go to a sex shop together, and what are you going to buy for me? And you get to play that role with your partner. So maybe role playing, maybe add some dress ups and some fantasy into these intimate moments. You know, can we be like children again? You know, when we were little and we would put on our nerves and we played doctors and nurses. Well, you know, you can find this outfit in the sex shop. Why can't we be like children again and play and be our playful selves? You know, let's dress up as a man in uniform. There's nothing more sexy than that, I think. But experimentation, like let's kind of just change the landscape. Experimentation. If you've never tried it and things are getting a little bit complacent, let's open your eyes, open your mind to some new experimentation. Explore different types of touch, different positions. What's a new position you've never done before? All right, and discover, does it feel pleasurable? You only have to try it. It's about your pleasure. I think we've forgotten that we have sex for an outcome rather than for sex for pleasurable sake. So that's what this is all about. And if we look at, for the guys, more foreplay, guys, because if we look at it like this, women, only 30% of all women have orgasms through intercourse. So guys, we need more foreplay. All right, most women need to be touched for a long time, and it's not just a 5-minute let's touch you and, you know, twinkle the nipples and that's about 5 minutes of foreplay. No, like it requires more than that. Women usually take about 25 to 35 minutes or more of foreplay. Men don't need as much foreplay, but women do. Women do. So I'm here to tell the guys, more foreplay, please. All right, keep the fantasies flowing. All right, open up your sexual fantasies to each other. Now, there are apps online. You can start, you know, maybe Spicer. This is one for, you know, you can get this one off the App Store. You download it, both your partners install the app, and it asks you a bunch of questions. And, you know, these are just ideas. Remember, guys, these are ideas. This is not a have-to situation. This is just an open your mind situation. But let's look at intellectual intimacy. because, you know, it's about talking about, you know, it could be intellectual discussions, you know, it can be reading some books together. Like I love David Attenborough. I love documentaries, you know, fantastic fungi. I love mycelium. I really love documentaries and having deep conversations about topics about science. That's what arouses me. Women, for me, it starts in my brain. So I need intellectual intimacy, you know, continuous learning. So, you know, can we try learning something new together to strengthen the bond? Might be a tango class. It's, you know, let's think about writing the birth plan together. I know that's kind of, you know, but it's just, can we do things together? Spiritual intimacy. This is where we have shared values. Now, you're not always going to have the same values. I mean, I have some of my Jewish patients and they have married a non-Jew, and it's, you know, we've got to understand we all have different values and different belief systems, and whether they're religious or spiritual or just simply moral. But it's about having the conversations and opening up the dialogue. But mindfulness and meditation, you know, through prayer, through mindfulness, through meditation, you can really connect. And having that spiritual connection with your partner, it's very arousing, you know, when you feel connected in that place, you know, it's like conscious conception. It's very beautiful. Quality time, so scheduled date nights, you know, regular date nights. I think this is really important. We need to make the time, schedule it in. Or it could be just we have the mornings together, or we go for walks in the evening together, or we have cuddle time. We want to schedule in like just have the quality unplugged is the word, time, periods where you're unplugged from technology and work, all right, to solely focus on each other. Now, this can be acts of service. It can be thoughtful gestures, talking about how small thoughtful gestures can go a long way, showing love and appreciation and supporting each other. It could be just making a cup of cacao. If your partner's making cacao, can you go and make her the cacao, bring her the cup of tea, or vice versa? Can you bring your hubby a cup of tea in bed? You know, if they've been working long hours, you know, just something little that they like to do, run a bath for him, you know, just support one another. And then it's understanding the love language. And if you are all unfamiliar, but I love Dr. Gary Chapman's book, The Love Language. And, you know, it's looking at the 5 languages of love. That's the book. And those languages are words of affirmation. We've got acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. So at the back of the book, they've got a lovely little you know, a quiz that you can do. And I think it's great that, you know, even if your husband or partner hasn't read the book, they can actually fill out the quiz, and if you don't know what their love language is, you'll get the answer. So, you know, I know my husband's love language is physical touch. Mine is words, no surprises there. So, you know, if my husband is wanting to rouse me, he can use language, or he can use words, or, you know, words are going to turn me on. And so likely with him, it's about physical touch, massage, holding hands. He's very tactile. Can you find out what your partner's love language is? It's really important to understand, and then you can give them that love, you know, and see how it manifests for you. Emotional support. So again, I said about being present, discuss the importance of being emotionally present for each other. All right, offering an ear to just listen through the tough times. And I want you to validate each other. We all need validation. All right, I had a patient and she was not validated with her early loss, and she had a recent miscarriage, and her gynecologist did not validate her loss, and it created a cascade of feelings for her, and then she got repressed emotions stuck in the throat, and that created a whole other plethora of issues. Okay, so we need to validate each other, be on the same team, you know, validate people's experiences, because it may not be valid for you, but it's valid for them. All right, and building trust. Let's look at consistency and honesty. Honesty is a big one. Like, you know, honesty is, it's such a challenge because we are in a world where we're almost set up to, you know, lie to each other, and it's crazy. But I'm trying to say, in this process, can you actually be a little bit more transparent? Like, if you can be vulnerable and honest, our hearts open. Our hearts respond to the truth. And so honesty is the currency here. All right. And it's going to build trust with you. When your partner is vulnerable and disarms, what's your immediate response? Male or female, it's just to dive in and give them more love. All right. So I want you to step more into your vulnerability and your honesty. And then just keep the playfulness and fun. Keep the fun alive. So, what's the fun thing that you're going to be doing this week? Can we create something that's new, something that's fun, or something that you used to do on your date nights that you haven't done for a while that make you laugh? So it could be going to stand-up comedy. What are we going to be doing this week? I want you to step into one of these things that I've maybe spoken about that you kind of just go, oh, I like that. Oh, that sounds interesting. Give it a go. There are no rules with this. And just accept that it might take longer than you expected to conceive. So it gets frustrating. All right. And just know that, you know, try not to get overly attached to the feelings of, you know, sadness, fear, anxiety, anger. Like, try and let the emotions pass through you. You may even want to consider having a break. Like, sometimes taking a break, you know, how many times have I seen someone that has just done 3 rounds of IVF, they take a break and then they get pregnant naturally because the pressure's off, the stress is not there, they're not so laser focused. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with taking a break to release some of the pressure if things are mounting. All right, just, it's a way to reconnect. Go on a holiday, you know, reconnect with a hobby that you enjoy, and you know, you can just start again. You know, the momentum. When you feel refreshed, you know, you come back fresh. It's not a problem to take a break. And, you know, just look at it as, you know, if you need to seek professional help. I had a couple and they were a little bit embarrassed to say that they were going to see a counsellor. And I'm like, why would you be embarrassed about that? It's wonderful. We often need to be coached through things. Sometimes things just come up left field, you know, it could be a full moon, you know, something can come up from the past. There can be generational trauma, there can be sexual abuse, there can be, you know, whatever is showing up in your relationship. You know, it may not even be the trigger of the relationship. It might be something outside. It could be a work issue that's triggered you. So stepping into counseling or even seeing a sex therapist can provide you a safe space so that you can move through it, look at different perspectives, deepen the connection. So I'm always a fan of seeking professional help when you feel it's necessary. But just be patient, be understanding. I think that's the takeaway from today, is if you can be patient and understanding with each other and recognize that building sexual intimacy, it takes time, especially when you're dealing with challenges along the way. But I want you to, you know, reinforce, you know, focus on the positive aspects of your relationship and celebrate. Like, this is where we need to celebrate the wins, you know, celebrate your brags on your journey to improve your sexual intimacy. And just please let me know how you go, because I'm always looking for new tools to share with my patients. So it's all about enjoying the process, enjoying the journey, and being transparent. So now I'm going to open up the Q&A. Would anyone like to ask me a question?
I'll ask you a question since one just kind of popped up in my head. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. So what would you say for couples that, well, okay. Well, I mean, there's this idea, and I don't know if there's any science behind it, that if you are trying to conceive and you've hit your, you know, you hit your mark during ovulation, and then once you're in your luteal phase, they say that it's not wise to have, or
Yeah.
so because you might be pregnant, or so what does that have to, I have to be quiet because again, I'm not at my house, but
Hearing you.
um But yeah, so what would you say about like, your couples that are trying to conceive and they're hitting the follicular phase like all the way through, but then because of what's in the woman's head, she just kind of stops right at her luteal phase. Is that
Yeah, well, look, I've got some studies
yeah.
actually. I'll pull up the data. I don't have it, it's like just off the top of my head, but I know that they've done studies in rats, and that to increase the semen, more semen, it actually helps with implantation and impacting. Yeah, so it's IVF will often say no sex after because they want to avoid any infection and bacterial vaginosis, but this is an IVF thing. So this is not a natural conception thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I'm saying I
All the
encourage
way through.
all the way through,
Okay.
keep the love and intimacy alive. I mean, don't wear yourself out if you feel like you want to break. I understand, but
Mhm.
have sex for pleasure. Absolutely. It's not going to affect implantation, because you've got to remember implantation happens in the uterus, not in the vagina. So orgasms are great.
Okay.
Self-pleasuring is great. Yes, pleasure is great. Is
Awesome.
the answer. Ines, do you have a question for me?
I don't have a question, but I do have a suggestion.
Yeah, please.
I would say cooking for each other is really important because a lot of times, maybe one person is more skilled at it or maybe likes to cook and the other person isn't. But I know for a person like myself who does most of the cooking, sometimes I need a little help. Sometimes I want to be cooked for. And I think that's just something that couples need to be mindful of, is like feeding each other and, even snacks, if there's snacks or a drink or, dinner, just really trying to go all out sometimes for your partner, do something, unique or, um, something nutritious, something, just do that for them so that they can like ease off and not have to feel so like on top of things. But not only do you have to cook, then you got to clean up too.
Indeed.
So it just becomes a lot. So I just wanted to add that. That's another thing to help connect.
I totally agree with you, Ines. There's something about, when I'm being cooked for, like my husband, I've never had a partner before that cooked for me ever. And it's just how it's been. But I married an Italian man, and it was just to have a man in the kitchen for me. It just made me feel like, oh, I feel like Aphrodite. I feel like a princess. It was such a turn on for me. I
Yeah,
actually fall more in love with him. Yeah, so I
yeah,
totally agree with you. The little things, like, even if your husband's working and you take them a little, I'll take my husband a little espresso and make a little biscuit, and it's those little things, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, loving kindness. Ruth, do you want to say hello, my beauty? Do you want to say hello and ask me a question or share?
Are you talking to
Yes.
me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you,
Okay.
Ruth. I
Sorry.
just thought maybe you've got some wisdom on
Go ahead.
this. Yeah.
Well, I just think this is important to have, not just it all be about one thing, but just to build the relationship a little at a time in
Yeah.
all different ways. I've known people who were trying to conceive who end up divorcing because that wasn't successful. And that was like it became such a part of their relationship that they just, when it didn't work, they had to split up. And I'm sad.
Yeah.
You can still go on together. Um, I just feel like it's important to continue those little things.
Yeah.
When my boys got married, I told them, I said, guys, sex starts in the kitchen. And they're like, what? And I said, yeah, when you're in there helping her clean up, helping her do whatever, set the table, clean up, then you both sit down together to watch the show or whatever, instead of her in the kitchen and you on the couch. And that's really a turnoff, because the girl goes to bed really, really tired and you're feeling good because you've been resting all evening. So I just think it's important that you do it together. Like Ines just said, if he doesn't just do it for you, do it together. And that's just another partner activity.
It's true. It's true. Share the load, share the love, and even having meals together. Like I've had patients where they would sit separate and not actually eat together. So, you know, where possible, have meal times together. So you're actually fully engaged with one another. I think it's really nice to build that intimacy. I don't know. I really believe this topic, it needs more light. You know, I think we get afraid of, you know, because it's like, oh, I'm talking about sexual things and I'm exposing myself, but it's about love and intimacy. I think this topic's really important. It's one of the big things that, you know, brings couples undone that I see in my work, which is why I wanted to do a talk on it. Yeah. So thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions?
I do again. Sorry, this has to do more with like hormones, I guess. Would you say, okay, so like, of course, if it's good for your mental health, it's good for your hormones, you know, it just kind of goes up the ladder. But like, were you able to find any studies that, you know, have said anything to do with like intimacy and like, you know, hormones and how that, you know, that intimacy was, you know, made better, or the hormone, you know, regulation was made better by that intimacy? Do you have anything?
Oh, okay, right. So
Yeah.
let me understand. So you want me to see if I've got any studies, if you have good
Yeah.
intimacy, will it affect the hormonal cascade?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I know it will, you know, because if you're mentally stable and you're mentally, you know, in it, it's
Yeah,
going to be good for your gut health, and it's going to be essentially, you know, eventually good for
yeah.
your hormones. But I was just wondering if there's any like actual studies that show that.
Look, I'm not sure, but you know, it's
Yeah.
given me great cause and great reason to investigate. And if I do,
Yeah.
DM you, my love. You know, yep. we all grow from your questions, but you know, in essence, you know, you would, you know, expect that if you're happy, like even if we just look at the happiness, you know, concept, if you're happy, you're producing more serotonin and
Right.
dopamine, and do you know what I mean? That cascade,
Yeah.
love and intimacy, generally creates happiness within ourselves, and so
Yeah.
you know, if we just look at creation, it's really born out of love. But let me find some data for you. I love data and I love research, but
So do
you know,
I.
makes sense. You know, things
Yeah.
balance when you are having that love and intimacy with your partner. Like you
Okay.
can
Yeah.
see what stress does to, like, even if we look at it like from this perspective, if you're stressed, it can in fact impact your ability to ovulate. It can impede ovulation, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense that if you are harmonized with love and intimacy, then of course you're going to ovulate, you know, easier, and your parasympathetic nervous system is going to be turned on rather than high cortisol. So, you know, I
Right.
would say that there's a big argument for that, but yeah, let's find the data. It'd be nice to find some.
Okay. Okay.
I'll put up
Yeah.
videos. Any other questions?
And again, mine's not a question, but I just have one last thing to say. But okay, so for example, my sister and her husband have been trying to conceive for the last 6 years. But they were, you know, they met, they didn't know themselves, each other, and like, you know, when they were younger. And so from the moment they met, it was like, let's try to conceive, because she was already 36. And I can see how things are not really going well in her, you know, in her relationship with him, and how they're
Yeah.
getting frustrated and tired. And it kind of like is in the back of my head, because I've only been, you know, intimate with Stephen for 2 years. But again, it's different with us because we're very comedic when we're together. So, and
Yeah.
also we knew each other when we were little, but we never really acted on it. And so there's a lot of,
Yeah.
it's not regret, but it's just like, God, you know, like,
Well, you know, this is where your sister and I mean, we can get stale in relationships. This is where
yeah.
this information, and Ruth's brought up a great point about oxytocin, and it helps our hormones and it helps reduce cortisol. And when we're together and we're having that love and intimacy, we get to, you know, have that oxytocin release, you know, especially if you're laying on your husband's chest or vice versa, even just the melting hugs. You know, it sounds like your sister and her husband could really be of value with some of these tools that we've talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
I
know,
agree.
but it requires honesty to acknowledge, oh, okay, let's try this. Can we be open and vulnerable? This is where I think we get stuck in ruts, where we don't reflect. We don't often, we're so busy being busy in relationships that we often don't have time to go, this is not working. I'm actually not feeling fulfilled here. I'm not having the quality time here. You're distracted, or you're too tired. We're not even sitting together or eating together. We're not holding hands. We're not talking anymore. It's great that you can observe that, because you can see actually the intimacy that you have with Stephen. And so you guys are on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're great advocates for this.
Yeah.
What do you think your greatest secret is? What do you think you could impart to people that might be watching this? What could you share? What do you think is the best thing you could share in this journey?
I think the kind of underlying thing we tell ourselves, aside from being comedic and giving each other the compliments in bed and napping together, aside from all the good stuff, I think the underlying thing with us is, you know, we spent our lives living our lives, having adventures of our own. And now that, you know, now that I've, you know, with him again, well, not again, but like now that I've acted on my initial crush, and now that he's acted on, you know, now it's kind of like, well, what's left for us? You know, it's kind of, and it's also again comedic, but it's kind of the way we see each other. It's like, all right, this is where, you know, we end up and spend the rest of our lives, like come rain or come shine.
But you've got the laughter, then that's I think that's the key word. You've got the playfulness and the laughter, and I think that's where we want to come back to that playfulness, don't we? That lightness. Yeah,
that's important.
Yeah, thank you, Darcy.
I give him shows that he never asked for, so that's one of the funny things we do. It's funny because like I put on wigs and stuff, and I'm like doing cartwheels, and it's
beautiful. I love this. This is gorgeous. Yeah, you know. Thank you for sharing. Ines, do you have any secrets, any things that you can impart in your relationship that might help others on this path?
For me, like you, like I always say, you know, my journey has been a long one. So I would say the best thing is to continue to not to necessarily talk about it daily, because it's not anything you have to talk about, honestly, daily. I think it's just to continue to make steps forward. Like you said, it's okay to rest. Sometimes if you want to take a couple of weeks off or a month off of doing things and then get back to it. And then stay in communication with your partner, you know, make sure y'all are talking about your relationship getting better, you know, doing things together, you know, just trying to be happy together. But yeah, I that's what I've learned. Like, I don't want it to be really stressful. Because like you said, once you get into like 5 years of trying to conceive, 6, 7, 8 years, or even longer, like it can get really really stressful on a couple. And the goal is to be together. It's not to divorce or like anything like that, because I don't feel like that is something that you have to do or you should be doing.
Yeah.
Just because you haven't conceived. That's not the reason why you got married. You got married because you love the person and you want to be with them. And then, you know, but people do marry, you know, to build their families and stuff, obviously, you know. But once again, that's something that you just got to know that it's going to happen for you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Ruth, any girls, gems that you could offer?
Yeah, one thing I thought about, you did mention the fantasy. I've heard studies that indicate that when like when you are trying to conceive, you know, it's your fertile window, to have a fantasy date and dress up in whatever your spouse or your partner would want to fantasize. You mentioned the man in uniform, if that turns her on, you know, and then just meet up kind of at a place where you never go, and don't talk a lot, but just kind of, you know, kind of like a different relationship. It's just kind of like you know, a fantasy type relationship. And then, I mean, statistically, when you meet up a new partner, your body responds more in order to conceive. Your cervix tilts the right way, everything changes, and the sperm count is much higher, so it actually makes it more likely that you will conceive. So I thought that was a kind of a fun thing that you did mention.
I love this, Ruth. I'm going to conclude on that one, because that's what we need. It's building the arousal. And what you're saying is so true. We want to bring the spice back and the fun back. So yeah, I love this. Thank you for sharing. I think that's a great takeaway. So thank you all for joining me for the live meeting. Remember, I'm running these lives weekly, every Thursday evening, 8 p.m. EST. So please come with your questions, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye, Darcy. Bye, Ines. Bye, Ruth. Bye, Lee. See you later.